Training is very important for two reasons. First of all, there's the safety aspect of it.
He takes
One
long
push
short
button.
positions.
Elaborate a little more on the role to play with ICS.
Each of these sectors. That is why I feel it is the shipyard of the future.
Jack Lloyd as our guest for the day. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Hello and welcome all of you to yet another episode of Quarterdeck. And today at Quarterdeck, I am in conversation with Mr. Andy Lang. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Well, Andy, your real life resembles a Hollywood fiction with lots of twists and turns.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be portrayed into a movie or a film. And how do you feel yourself being portrayed as the central character in a film?
It's going to be the first time for me, a new experience. But after the experiences I've had all over the world, and some of the dangers and some of the pleasures of overseas life in the maritime industry, being offshore platforms, FPSOs, and onshore, I don't think it'll be too much of a shock. But it depends on the actor. I have my ideas of different actors who would best portray my personality. But I was thinking Colin Farrell or somebody like this. My friends were laughing. But I think whoever takes the part of me in the movie, they'd have to spend some time with me to adopt my character, to see what I'm like in restaurants or in a bar or just walking naturally, to get a good feeling of my personality before they're able to portray me correctly. So I think that's the main part. More than who the actual actor is going to be, is can he pass over to the audience my personality, which can be quite strong in some areas, some topics.
Perhaps spend some time with you and have a chat with you to get an insight of what you are, so that the portrayal becomes more easy.
Or maybe go on holiday with me to get the full personality. I like to travel, as you know. I've been overseas now for the last 26 years in the oil and gas industries. And I would encourage anybody who's thinking to go offshore, whether they're going to be from a roustabout to an engineer, do it. Boys like to play with toys from the day we're born onwards. We never actually grow up. But in the maritime industry, boys get to play with very, very big, expensive toys, multi-million-dollar toys, and it gets very exciting, especially for the young up-and-coming engineers. They can go offshore. They have to do all their safety training first. There are PITO, safety courses with Hewitt, which is the helicopter underwater emergency trainer and all this, to make it safe for them to go offshore in case the helicopter ditches and what to do to survive. But the offshore industry, yes, it's very good. However, for those in love, maybe it's not so good because they'd be pining for their loved ones for like 28 days at a time. So maybe it's good that you work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. It keeps your mind on your work and not on being homesick or something like this. I found homesickness, it only hits you one time. Once you get past the homesickness, it never comes back. You might be happy where you're working, you might be sad where you're working, but the homesickness never returns. For me, my first overseas job was in 1989 in South Africa on the first offshore oil platform to be built in the country. And I don't mind admitting I was terribly homesick for the first 6 months. People working with me, they were veterans for the offshore industry and they've been doing it for many years, but for me it was the very first time. Fortunately, I worked for the client, not the contractor at the time, so I could just watch how it's done. Not to put my foot in it and say that's wrong or that's wrong. I learned to shut up, not to be opinionated anywhere, and learn. And then as you quickly develop, you gain the experience of the other people you're working with. Then you start to make your own ideas. You've done your university, you've done your training, you know the metallurgy, you know the welding, the pressure testing. But without actually working at it, it's just paperwork. It's just like that. So working with people, being quiet, you just absorb it. And then when you know enough and you know what's correct and what's not correct, as a client, you can put your foot down and say, stop, that's not correct. Like this. But I think for people starting off in the maritime industry, it's better not to be opinionated, not to have too much confidence or a chip on your shoulder that you've just passed your university degree and you know everything, because you don't know anything. Once you get your degree, only from then on, then you're going to start learning. Once you've done the theory, fine, but the practical is a very different story, especially offshore in the maritime industry, where safety is the most primary goal. Zero lost time instances and things like this. There's a lot of very necessary safety training first. But slowly but surely, people pick it up. And then, and only then, I believe they can apply what they've learned in university, or if they've done a sea-swept welding course or American Welding Society. Once they've gained enough knowledge, then they can actually put it into practice and assert themselves as an inspector or an engineer, whether they do pre-commissioning or commissioning later. But I don't regret going overseas. In a way, I don't have a family as such because I'm overseas 26 years. You meet people all over the world, lovely people, wonderful people. Some countries, not so safe, not so desirable. But I still have to go there just to experience that country or those people. There are good people everywhere. The way I judge a country is not by the country itself, but by the people. But depending on the ratio of the good and the bad is how I judge a country. Mm-hmm. But even in the worst places I've ever worked, there have been some fantastic people too. And people that are there for you if you really need them most, which is the main worry. You're away from home, away from family. Sometimes you don't even have telephone communications, nothing. Or if you do, it breaks up, or you don't have Wi-Fi or internet. That makes it even more lonely. But it's the people you work with. They become your brothers, like your new family and friends. And those are the people, and they all have the same goal. They're all away from home, all away from their families. Nobody wants to be there. But you do it for the love of your family, or like this, you know. So, and I find that very strong, not so much onshore work, because you're free to drive around or go to the local village. But in the offshore industry, it becomes more obvious, more apparent that everybody there is to help. Doesn't matter what you need, somebody is, how can I help you? What do you want? What can I do? It's wonderful in the offshore business. So, yeah, everybody becomes brothers. You don't see many arguments offshore. Tempers can be very frail sometimes because people are homesick, or they don't like living in a bunk bed with somebody else in the same room, or sharing the same bathroom in the morning, or having to wait. But people just seem to know, just calm down. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 28 days, make nice money. Then you're able to go home for 28 days full with your family and friends. So it has its compensations. Personally, for me, for tax reasons, I don't like 28 rotations because I go back to the UK, I pay full tax. So I prefer 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or even longer. But because I don't have any children or any wife as such, then colleagues who do have a family, when it comes to Christmas times, I always volunteer to stay back to cover while they can go home, because Christmas is for children. I don't have children. And you watch the same movies every Christmas anyway, so I'm not missing anything. So I'm always normally the one to volunteer to stay behind so they can go off. And then when they come back in January, then I can take my break. I don't like Christmas cake anyway, so I'm always the one to volunteer. When I went to Venezuela, well, the last time I went to Venezuela was 2002. I flew out from Amsterdam on the 19th of December when I arrived in this upstream oil facilities in a place called Santa May in Venezuela. It's like central Venezuela, but very rich oil fields. We had 130 nodding donkeys going. We were exporting 130,000 barrels a day. So it's very rich oil fields. But when I arrived there was nobody there because they'd already flown for Christmas holidays. I just had a computer login, username and password left with a sticker there's your desk, there's your computer. And I started working there. But you could tell very clearly that the project was in trouble. Actually, I didn't realize it at the time, but the project was 7 months behind schedule. So in a way, I liked that because it gave me more to do, more responsibility. And using my own system, I brought the 7 months forward after 4 months. And then I brought the project forward another 4 months. So the oil company I was working for, they were able to export 130,000 barrels a day 4 months earlier. At that time, made them $437 million. So they were quite happy about it. But Venezuela does have its downside as well.
Now, you are basically from the UK, but you speak Spanish. You speak Spanish.
Yes. Being soft-hearted, the first time I was in Venezuela was 1997. And I just finished my original divorce. So I was vulnerable and fell in love again. I got married just after 7 months of being in Venezuela. In those days, I didn't speak Spanish, and my new wife didn't speak a word of English, so it was amusing to all around me. How do you communicate? I said, well, if I'm hungry, it's like, hungry. If I'm thirsty, it's like, I'm thirsty. What more? It's so easy, using your hands to describe. Yeah, so sometimes you're in a different country, you don't speak that language, they don't speak English. But if you really want to understand that person, because you have a genuine interest, you can. You can talk with your hands, you can point, you can just very slowly. And because the person you're talking to wants to understand as well, something strange happens and they can understand you and you can understand them. You have to have the patience and not get frustrated. There were times I'm like, how many times have I got to say the same thing? But then I learned over the years, when you have a meeting and you're talking to another nationality, maybe you're the client, but they're always nodding yes, always yes, but they haven't actually understood anything. So what I try and tell anybody who's going to go in the offshore industry or onshore, when you've explained something, you ask the other side, now tell me what I've just told you. And then you can see that they haven't actually understood anything. So then you show them. Or if I'm going to the contractors, it's something I want with the quality control or quality assurance documentation, I'll sit with the contractor and I will do it myself in front of the contractor. And then they can visualize it themselves, not just listen to words. And then it makes it easier for the contractor, which in turn makes my job a lot easier. So I work for the contractor, I enjoy it. I think it's actually more challenging to work for the contractor than the client. But I work one time for the client, another time for the contractor, vice versa. But it never actually changes what I do. I work with people, and especially if they're not quite sure, I'll sit with them for as long as it takes to make it clear. And then you don't actually need to be understood. They can see what you're doing and they can visualize and they can remember it that way. So I like to do that all over the world. And I've worked in over 23 countries worldwide. I enjoyed it very much in China and Japan. I was in Pakistan. I enjoyed the hospitality also in Pakistan. I went to Venezuela, and then I went back to Venezuela, and then I went back to Venezuela, and the fourth time to Venezuela, I was beginning to wonder, will I ever see the rest of the world? I'm going back and forth South America all the time. Even in Venezuela, you have the good and the bad, but the language barrier is clear because there's not so many people who speak English over there. The ones who do speak English always have a job. The ones who don't speak English, where other guys in the street take a pop shot at you or something like this, or they cut your arm sometimes with a knife trying to get your car keys off you, things like this. But they can't help it. They have to survive. But I especially enjoyed Nigeria as well. The biggest danger in Nigeria is not the Nigerians, it's the mosquitoes. For the people or the bad guys, the cartels, the roadblocks, the community roadblocks, they only need money to survive because they're starving, because it's not the most uncorrupt country in the world. But you can protect yourself against that with armed escorts. But you can't protect yourself against a mosquito unless you spray yourself with so much DEET, at least 50% DEET, not to get bitten in the first place. So anybody who's considering going to West Africa, maybe other parts of Africa too, I would say take as much mosquito repellent as you can. There used to be the two tablets, Harlequin and Nivaquin, which people used to take for mosquito or malaria areas around the world, but that hasn't worked for a long time because that clever little parasite, he becomes immune. Very clever, these little things. It's only the female mosquito carries a malaria anyway, and she only carries a parasite when she's pregnant. That's the Esophagus is the name of that type of malaria, that mosquito. But yeah, it's the same. It's better to prevent yourself being bitten. The office I worked in Nigeria in 2008, one of our colleagues died of cerebral malaria. We shared the same office. Fortunately for me, the mosquito didn't bite me, but unfortunately for my friend. And he didn't realize he was sick until 2 or 3 days because, like most people in the offshore business, they're strong. They feel a bit bad one day, they think it's something they've eaten and they just ignore it. Or they get their headaches or something, they think they haven't drunk enough water. But my advice, don't wait, especially in those countries. Go immediately to your doctor or the site clinic and explain exactly how you're feeling. Because he's trained to see problems that you can't even see yourself yet. And any symptoms, maybe you don't feel them, but he can see them in your eyes or something. And they can administer medication at the earliest possible opportunity. But for my friend, he was from South Africa. He didn't use mosquito repellent, which you'd think he should have done. But he was unfortunate. They flew him to Harley Street in London, but it was already too late. The cerebral malaria, if you don't catch it within the first 2 days, it's already too late. And no medication can help you after that. So poor Jonathan, he went. So I completely cover myself in DEET. It's a bad smell and it's a bad taste if you get it on your lips, but I just used to close my mouth, close my eyes, spray my whole face, my hair, my clothes. I'd be stinking of this stuff. But it keeps you alive. So it's one of the chores you have to do when you're in malaria zones. I also caught cholera, also in West Africa. 76 people died in 1 week in Togo, which is next to Ghana. And like an idiot, I got complacent. I thought I must have so many antibodies now, I can brush my teeth with the tap water. Wrong. I got cholera, and I had a 14-hour drive ahead of me with cholera. And when I finally got back to Accra, where I was based in Ghana, I felt terrible. The next day, I had to go back where I came from, another 14-hour drive. So I explained to my driver, who was from Ghana, wonderful guy. He saw the look at me in the morning, I'm still sweating, you know. Can't keep any liquids in with cholera. Every muscle in your body is screaming in pain. It's terrible. So in the middle of nowhere, we're out in the bush. There's no houses, nothing around. I said, I've really got to find a pharmacy. And there's like a little shack he could see from the road. He said, there's a pharmacy. I said, you can't be serious, that's a pharmacy? Yeah, it's a pharmacy. I went there and I wanted to take Flagyl, very powerful antibiotic, and as many rehydrant powders as I could carry. This little shack sold as many Flagyl as you wanted, as many rehydrant powders. So I got my mineral water, put 3 sachets in 1 bottle, and took 3 Flagyl to kill the cholera as fast as possible. It took me about a week to 10 days to start to feel back to normal again. But I caught it just in time. And with my mother being in a medical profession most of her life, if I'm in real trouble, I can always call home, which everybody can. And somebody knows somebody who can help. And she said to me, get the high dose of antibiotics as quick as you can and plenty of fluids. Always plenty of fluids, especially with the rehydrant powders in. If you've had sickness or runny stomach, keep yourself hydrated all the time. to avoid the headaches. But you learn all this overseas. Offshore platforms, there's always excellent medical facilities because you're surrounded by water. There's nowhere else. Or for acute and medical problems, you have the helicopters are back and forth every couple of hours. You'll be out on the next chopper to be medevaced. But in the offshore industry, because of such dangers, they always put, health and safety at the highest regard. So people shouldn't worry about going on a platform and maybe becoming sick because the medical facility is always excellent. Also because people are working for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, the food is normally spectacular. Lots of proteins, big steaks, and anything you want is available to sustain your energy. So offshore isn't such a hard life. It depends where. You could be in the North Sea with force 10 gales and cold weather, or you could be in the Mexican Gulf complaining about the sunshine. But wherever you are, the people are the same. They're all there for one purpose, to make a decent living so they can support their families better than if they worked back home and paid the taxes and the usual expenses back home, keep away and make more money and go back. But it is a sacrifice. But I wouldn't discourage anybody from joining the maritime industry, especially up-and-coming engineers, because it is an exciting life when you've got these big toys to play with and going on helicopters and having survival suits and all this. It's exciting. And I'd encourage anybody to go offshore, but also onshore, deserts, jungle, sub-zero temperatures like I was in Kazakhstan. It got to minus 60 some days. It could drop from minus 45 to minus 60 in 20 minutes. And in such instances, we had special suits, and you only go outside for 20 minutes and get back in. And it's like a relay. The next team is ready to go out and come back in. But Kazakhstan is not without its dangers. As I written the book, what inspired me to write a book was a magazine published in the UK called the Expat Network magazine. That's the company, but the magazine's called Nexus. I used to write little short stories to send to the director. But before I actually went to Kazakhstan, the last job was in West Africa for an oil company. I was the quality manager for Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. So on a monthly basis, I drive down through Ghana, across into Togo, where I caught the cholera, across the border into Benin, where they invented voodoo, which I'll come back to shortly, and then to the Nigerian border crossing, which I would imagine would be one of the most notorious land border crossings in the world. Getting out to Benin is not so bad, but getting into Nigeria, it can take several hours before they finally stamp your passport. Everybody needs their tip to do their jobs. I was arrested at gunpoint by DEA, Nigerian Drug Enforcement Agency, because I had a marijuana leaf on my T-shirt. I did it for a personal challenge. Can I get through the border crossing with a picture of a marijuana leaf? The answer is no. Not without setting off, why has he got a marijuana leaf? Let's search the car, let's search his bags, which took like an hour and a half. Surrounded by local people, so you're kind of watching your pockets and your case is open and everything becomes a present for everyone. But you get used to this, you have to expect it. It's frustrating, but nevertheless, you're in their country, you're not at home. You have to go with it. The way to keep calm is to just imagine you're an observer. You're not really there. It's going to happen if you're there or not. It's going to continue if you're there or not. You're not going to be able to change anything. The way to survive is just get through as calmly as you can, and if you have to pay a few dollars here and there, at least you get through. But if you fight against it and you refuse, you will never get through that border. Never. They'll just say, well, they'll just do that. They'll keep you there waiting all day. Because they've got the patience. They can keep you waiting all day, all night, whatever. And they know that either you're going to go back or you're going to go forward, in which case you pay the usual $20, $20, $20. One particular border crossing, I put it in quite great detail in the book, that I told them I wanted 28-day stamp on my passport to leave Benin to enter Nigeria. I was having meetings with our contractor, so I thought 2 weeks is enough, but I want 28 days just in case. Like an idiot, I didn't check the stamp they gave me in my passport, which I've since learned, always check the date they give you. I stayed 21 days, but they only stamped me for 14. So I was 7 days overstay in Nigeria. So when I was coming back, I was arrested at gunpoint, a Kalashnikov AK-47 pushed against my head. You could see the remains of the red paint where the safety had been disabled. And they're shouting and screaming at me that I'm a legal alien in their country, and the way they speak. I've been pushed so far, you go past angry. You just don't care anymore after all this usual every week. So I grabbed the gun and I held it down, pointing it to the ground, which made them even more angry. They're saying, leave go of our gun. I said, no, you've got the safety off. Why is the safety off? I'm not a criminal. But you've overstayed 7 days and you're under arrest. We're going to lock you up for 12 months in a Nigerian jail. And your embassies, your government, they cannot do anything to help you because you're guilty. Well, actually, he was quite right. So I started to think, how am I going to get out of this one? And he's still shouting at me. I won't leave go with the gun. But I started laughing, you know. He looked at me. Why are you laughing? I said, let's face it. I must be the first white man in the history of Nigeria to have 7 minutes overstay, let alone 7 days. And you could see the humor. And he was a chief immigration officer. And he had a slight grin on his face. And I thought, this guy's okay. He's only acting the part, trying to frighten me. I said, let's go and discuss this in your office. So, okay, the usual tip. And he became a good friend. He said, I'm now your brother. Here's my telephone number. The next time you pass through the Benin-Nigerian border, you call me first. I'll give you fast track every time. So it really does pay. They're starving. They got families to feed. You're making a good salary. Give some money. Don't try to keep it to yourself, you know? And it works. And later on, I'll explain how this actually saved my life in Nigeria when I got sick. And I'll always, you know, be thankful for Nigerian airport in Port Harcourt and all the staff there who were fantastic. So after I got ambushed, I decided I quit. This is getting too much now. Being shot at, my driver, they just winged his arm, but he's sitting next to me. So the bullet was too close for comfort, and plus they were shooting. So my armed escort, they were too far behind. They came up, and they took out the 3 guys ambushing us. Kind of sad, but anyway, they didn't come out of it very well. Then I got to the Benin border, and I said, that's it now, enough. So years ago, when I worked in Venezuela, I used to go to the islands called Aruba. It's only a 25-minute flight from Caracas.
Training is very important for 2 reasons. First of all, there's the safety aspect of it.
You take a
One
long,
thing that
short position.
elaborate a little more on the role to play with ICS.
Each of these sectors. That is why I feel it is the shipyard of the future.
Jack Lloyd as our guest for the day. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.